This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. We got a good show for today. It actually worked out. It's like one of the few times where Mother Nature actually helped us in working out for the show. A multi-guest show, including an in-studio guest. Now, we got some issues here in Oklahoma, folks, which we're going to dive into in the second half of the show. We got some big issues in Oklahoma. If you know, for the last couple of days, Frank Scalish has been making his way down from the great state of Ohio, where it is socked in, frozen, snow on the ground, impossible to go fishing. So, come down to Oklahoma. We'll do our annual deal. We'll kind of celebrate the 200th show. Well, it was like 7 degrees 2 nights when he left, and then it was like 3 degrees last night. I think you know where we're going with this story. We'll get into it in the second half of the show. But we also have weather at the first Bassmaster Open Division I on Clarks Hill Lake. A freak show, a freak snowstorm, ice storm, everything has blanketed the area. These guys have been trying to catch spotted bass, largemouth bass with their guides frozen. Every single angler who happens to run a boat that has heated seats has been bragging about it on social media. Today is the off day, which means we're going to bring in a true on-location guest, none other than bass addict Charlie Hartley. Charlie, thanks for jumping on BTL on your off day.
Happy New Year, Matt. Happy New Year's, BTL fans. We're returning to live Bass Talk Live coverage from Clarks Hill, Augusta, Georgia. It's right about 24 degrees this morning. We got about 1 to 2 inches starting at about 1 o'clock yesterday during practice. The snow started falling. It's going to be a really interesting tournament. They've canceled all our activities today, thank God, because the road out in front of the hotel is still an ice skating rink. Literally, I'm watching cars just try to stop at lights and sliding into the ditches. So they canceled all activities for today. It's supposed to get up to 38 degrees. The sun's out bright. I just pulled the boat over to the side of the hotel where the sun's beating on it to try to melt. One thing good about having a black truck and a black boat, we learned that up north, is if the sun hits it, even if it's 20 degrees, it'll start thawing out. But I don't think anyone could get into any compartments today. Most of us were not smart enough to get it off the water before the snowstorm hit. So we were driving back to our hotels in a blizzard. It was wet before it started sticking. So there's ice under the snow. Compartments are frozen solid. Yesterday was a nightmare to practice. The sun never came out. We started in the 20s, ended in the 20s. Rod tips never unfroze. I immediately was like, what's wrong with my reel? And it's not only the guides, your braid retains water, so the braid freezes to the spool. You have to pull your line off the spool to try to make your lure go down in the water in front of you. It's been a whirlwind through practice. First practice day we launched, it was 58 degrees, foggy, kind of humid, nice out. But they said at 10 o'clock the windstorm event was going to happen. And at 10 o'clock on the nose, the wind gusted a little. I was a long ways from the ramp. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be bad. This isn't Lake Erie. Well, within an hour or two, there's 4-footers on the main lake. And when it's the weather went from 55 to 35 degrees, and it was cold because, we didn't dress that way in the morning. So got wet on top of being cold, woke up. Second practice morning was actually beautiful, very cold but sunny, 38 sunny. Rods did not freeze. Got around the lake. Lake was calm. Fish bit. Amazingly, you're seeing on Instagram, the fish are still biting thanks to forward-facing sonar. If this was an old school tournament prior to forward-facing sonar, we'd be throwing shad wraps on riprap and praying for a bite because there is
You're
no
scoping,
shallow
Charlie?
water. Huh?
You're scoping, Charlie?
Everyone's going to be scoping. There's no option in 30-degree water. You're fooling yourself if you're not doing anything else. I spent 3 days scoping, which to me is the scariest thing in the world, because if it doesn't work out, you can't go back to the bank because you didn't practice the bank. Normally, people say, oh, you can go to the bank anytime and catch 5. Well, 30-degree water, you're not going to the bank and catching 5. I talked to Randall Tharp after one practice day. He said, the only good one I caught was shallow. I said, Randall, they're not coming to the bank, buddy. I don't think there's a wave coming to the bank. But it's going to be really interesting. Second practice day was productive. Fish till dark. Yesterday was a waste. Had one bite the first practice day. Probably had 20 bites the second practice day and had one bite yesterday. So it's going to be just trying to be efficient, trying to keep your lure in the water, because between things freezing and stuff not working, it's hard to even make sure your lure's, in the water for 7 hours. We'll see if we have a delayed takeoff. They canceled all the activities today. We're supposed to have our video briefing supposed to come in this afternoon. I would imagine we're going, if these roads thaw out this afternoon. They're going to refreeze overnight, though. The drive to the ramp tomorrow will be treacherous. They do not have snow removal here or salt. They sprayed a bunch of brine down on the road before it came, which got all over our boats and trucks. I love that.
Oh no! Oh yeah! Oh
but,
no! Charlie Hartley with a.
I'm Jones and bad for
totally
a car wash.
Forgot about that, Charlie.
Yeah.
Oh, this is worst case scenario.
Yeah. So I put a couple pictures on Instagram. People said that's the dirtiest I've ever seen your boat and truck. I know.
So tomorrow, what I would assume scheduled takeoff is what, 6-7 a.m.
Probably 7:30.
So
would
at
be normal.
5 a.m. in Augusta, Georgia, it's going to be 15 degrees out. At 6 a.m., it's going to be 16. At 7 a.m., it's going to be 17.
Yeah, line does not come off reels that whole day. Maybe around there.
Yeah, 10:30. It's a balmy 30. It finally gets above freezing at
least it's sunny
at 12 o'clock.
When we got here, the water was 51 degrees. When I pulled off yesterday, the water was 40. So it's you know what? The sad part is this is an incredible fishery. I would love to come back here in March. It's huge fishery. It's got an incredible amount of fish on it. You can see on your electronics, there's fish everywhere. There's brush piles. And it lays out huge. I mean, it's a perfect tournament venue. There's areas of the lake that, don't get pressure just because they're so far away. It's a great place to go fishing, but nowhere's a great place to go fishing when it's scary to even get, hook up a trailer and get on the road. I was even scared pulling my trailer to the other side of the hotel because the parking lot's an ice skating ramp. And if you've ever tried to tow on ice, even the littlest momentum forward or backwards, you can slide right into the curb. I remember several years ago, I went to leave for Florida for the winter, and I was so anxious to leave in the morning, but we'd had some weather, and I hooked up the boat and I slid down my driveway across the other side into the ditch. I said, we're not leaving for Florida yet. We'll wait till about noon.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of like a little bit of the history of bass fishing. And I seem to remember a tournament that was on that side of the country that had some brutally cold weather. Maybe I'm thinking spring of 2008 on a fishery that had a mixture of spotted bass and largemouth with also a pretty healthy population of blueback herring. And there was this guy who took this big ass jig and did pretty damn well with it the first couple days.
Yeah, a lot different scenario, to be honest with you. It was spring, and it's not spring yet. That would have been March maybe instead of January. And, the fish at least were starting to fatten up, pre-spawn somewhat, even though it got cold. It was 20 degrees the first morning of that classic. We had troubles launching. It was so icy. But that was a whole different scenario. I had done a bunch of pre-fishing, and I knew where some big ones were on some brush and under docks. And They just happened to be there for me. And I wish I had that scenario going on now, though. With forward-facing sonar, I'm afraid I've been – yeah, and it's just 2 lakes up from here. You would love it here, Matt. It's like a big Hartwell with more points, more brush piles, more creeks, big lake. Hartwell is big, but this is even bigger.
Yeah, and I will say this. It's not like Bass. Oh my gosh, I'm going to say something positive about Bass. It's not like Bass scheduled this in Minneapolis in January.
But
it's
I told
not like
you,
it should be. Yeah. This should not be an issue this time of the year. This is Augusta, Georgia. I've got the map pulled up there. There's Columbia, South Carolina. It's basically just a hair north on the, what is that, latitude and longitude of Charleston, which, I mean, it should be 50. This should be, this should not, this is a freak thing that happened. Anytime you're in January, you've got that chance. So I'm sure they will do whatever is in the safest interest of the anglers. You know, one of the new things that the Bassmaster Opens did this year, you have to take a boater safety course in order to compete. So just a weird deal and a cold deal. So
yeah, when we saw the schedule, you and I went over it on BTL, and I told you Clarks Hill could be a winter tournament, and you, oh, come on. I'm like, no, January, dude. It could. I remember one time we started at Santee Cooper years ago, like 2000. It doesn't matter. Too early, too cold. And I drew out with Jim Bitter. And I'm not kidding you. I think 10 guys weighed fish the first day. Maybe 20 guys weighed fish out of the whole tournament. And he looked right at Trip Weldon, or maybe at the time Dewey Kendrick, and said, you're going to have to quit scheduling these winter tournaments. Now, Bitter had a big old bag the first day, and I got paired with him on day 2, and I was excited as hell. That's when it was pro on pro. And he was, you know how Mr. Bitter was, and now hyper
I've never
met him. He told me to sit down, shut up. And it was a long day. We stayed on one shell bed for 8 hours, and he caught 1 fish. And it was a long, cold winter tournament. I'm not sure I weighed a fish in it.
That fish did make it to the weigh-in, though, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. He made it to the, yes. That might have even been before. No, that was after that, because he was already bitter. He was already pretty bitter. I drew out with him 3 times.
Really?
We ended up growing respect for each other, but it started out.
That's what I heard. A lot of the old school guys had respect for Jim Bitter, a lot of respect for Jim Bitter from the stories I've heard, but they also said that his last name did fit the personality in most instances. Not in a bad way, just
a quick funny about him. Years later, we got along adamantly. I earned his respect, and we were sitting down they used to give us dinner at the Elites, and sat down with Tracy and him and his wife, and Jim's on his best behavior with his wife. And I go, Jim, I got to tell you a story. One of my first Bassmasters ever, you intimidated me off of a spot. You came up to me and said you were going to F. You were going to kill me, basically, if I didn't leave. And I mean, it scared me so bad I didn't want to go out in the tournament the next day. It was my first Bassmasters ever, and it scared me to death, like I wasn't even going to go out again. Well, I'm telling this story in front of his wife and my wife, and his wife looks at me and she goes, oh, my Jim would never do anything like that. And she just winked at me like she knew exactly what he'd done to me.
Oh, my God. All right, Charlie, I want to get your take on this. Now, if you haven't followed it, there's 2 divisions of the EQs. The top 50 in the points after each division basically earns the right to fish the EQs. The EQs are 3 tournament series. One in, did you spill some water?
Of course, I get so excited talking to you, I spilled my coffee.
You good?
Yeah,
we're not going to see some sparks or anything flying off the laptop, are we?
No, I'm a pro at spilling coffee. So, I do it lots.
50 from each division, and then you fish the EQs. $3,500 entry fee. All the weights or points are zeroed. 3 tournaments, one in September, one in October, one in November. They take the top 10 to the Elite Series. Now, we're not going to talk about how they also
just announced them. And I've got the schedule right here. We're going to Lake Champlain, September 18th through the 20th. You got to be excited about that. If you could make the
Can't
EQs,
wait. Hopefully.
that's right in our back pocket. You and I can hold our own at Champlain. Then September 2nd through the 4th, or October
2nd through the 4th.
Pickwick Lake, fantastic lake. Be a great time of the year to be on Pickwick. And then they're going to wrap it up at Okeechobee in November.
Dude, Charlie, you got to love that schedule.
Yeah, I love it. And, you know, I'm fishing both divisions to double my chances. And the main reason I'm fishing both divisions, Matt, they're still doing in and you're win and you're in. And I've been to a couple classics because of win and you're in. And, I mean, why wouldn't you want 11 chances at a classic? I'm fishing 11 tournaments this year where the winner goes to the classic. Those are really good odds, dude. I mean, there's not many places, not many tournaments you can fish one tournament. Well, you got to fish the whole series, but have the opportunity to go to the classic.
Charlie, you want to see something funny?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if this is just on mine or not. So if you go to your Bassmaster, you go to your Bassmaster biography, right? There's Charlie Hartley, Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to zoom this in right here. Oh, wait, no, that's not the zoom in.
Oh, wait a minute. Comments or something?
So look at your career stats. Yeah. It has you down for 28 classic appearances.
Oh, yeah, I think that beats the record. I'm pretty sure that's a record.
4 classic victories, 25 first place finishes, and 112 top 10 finishes. Well, I don't know if this is I don't know what it is. Like, look,
I'll
refresh this page. I am fairly sure that they have confused your profile with Kevin Van Dam's career stats.
6,428,000.
But look on the other side. That's you right there. I would screenshot that.
I had no idea. Why am I working for a living?
I don't know, but I would assume. So I was looking at KVD stats the other day, but I would assume that I mean, is that like that on anyone else's? Or is that just mine on that?
I have to pull it up. I haven't looked in a long time, Matt. So I guess
Charlie,
I've really racked up some finishes that I
you are a Bass Fishing Hall of Fame shoe-in.
Oh, that is hilarious, Matt. That's like, you know, I'm more powerful than I thought. I've dreamt of such things happening. You know what? I just watched the cast with Denny Brower, and he was 49 in 98 when he had that year where he had all those wins. 49. You know, these days 49's like you're over the hill. You can't see the screen anymore. But that was that's not like when he was in his 20s or 30s. That's almost a 50-year-old man kicking everyone's ass. That's just fantastic.
With a black and blue tube on High Rock Lake.
He was the man. I got to room with him several years.
Yeah. You can't hear it. Grab that picture right there behind the cattails. No, on the wall. Behind the cattails. That magazine cover. I'm flexing a little bit right here. Yeah, that one. Grab that.
I got to room with Denny and Shirley several years. Tracy and I did, and he is the man. Yeah, Denny's the man.
This is my prized possession, Charlie.
I know. There you are with Denny.
It's the highlight of my career. There's nothing like peaking as a 12-year-old.
If you're going to peak, it might as well be 12.
At least there was a peak.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, it's going to be an exciting event. There's going to be a lot of fish caught. I just hope no one gets hurt trying to drive to the ramp.
I'm sure Bass will do what's the safest thing for the group of anglers. So it puts Hank in a tough spot. Because this is one of those deals where you got half the guys that want to go and half the guys that are saying, whoa. And then you got a couple guys that have groups of fish that know they're going to catch them that are like, you know what? I just bought chains at AutoZone. We're freaking going. But all it takes is one boat to slide into the water or one. I mean, that's cold. That's a zero. You have a zero. Your margin of error is zero when it's 16 degrees out.
And if someone goes in the water at this temperature alone, we have no co-anglers. I hate to admit that. We got rid of co-anglers, which was a safety factor. If you go over that side with this many clothes on, I'm not sure you can get your ass back in the boat.
Yeah. So we've done that before,
just pushing my boat off the bank, I had troubles getting back up on the bow because everything was icy, and I ended up going out into about my knees.
Charlie, what you need to do is take a tie down rope that you use for the boat, make it a little bit longer, and as soon as you get to your first spot in the morning, take about a section of it, tie it off to the cleat with a loop so it's tied, then have about a 5 or 6 foot section, have it right on the side of the boat, tie a loop in the bottom of that. That way, if you go in when you're by yourself, you can grab that rope. You've got a loop you can get your foot up in, and you can get your body out of the water on that. Have one on either side. That way it's there. I mean, I do that when I'm crappie fishing by myself when it's cold outside, because you go in a suit, you go in the boots, you want to give yourself as many opportunities to get as much of your body out of the water as possible, then have a complete change of clothes in the back compartment like that, have the hand warmers, the gloves on that, make sure that whoever your loved ones are have your location turned on your iPhone so they can tell in case something happens like that. I mean, there's a number of things you can do to really help yourself in situations like that and just be the safest that you can. And I would venture to say, if you have a inflatable, not a bad idea to fish with it on all day.
Yeah, it's not a laughing matter. It's serious as a heart attack. And I'm not as young as I used to be, and the cold affects you different. I saw Tommy Martin on Instagram the other day. He's fishing the one at Toyota, and he bought a life suit, a float suit and a warm suit. He said the same thing. As you get older, the cold just affects you differently. I had to come in twice yesterday and change my foot gear. I mean, my toes were getting in a bad way. So I had to come in and, I had something on that was too tight. It was affecting the circulation. So my toes were getting cold. I had to loosen up. And even though I had more socks on, I had too many socks on that it was, not letting my circulation get to my toes. But it's the front deck gets wet from your trolling motor and your forward facing sonar transducer, and it turns into an ice skating rink up front. And I don't mean to sound like a wimpy old man, but it's not the kind of day you would go fishing. Yesterday was not the kind of day you would go fishing. Not at all.
All right, Charlie, I know you probably you have to find a open car wash to get the boat and truck. I'm going to let you go and get things ready. You can stay tuned to Bassmaster.com for all the updates on that. What, about 180 guys in that one?
Only 153. I was totally surprised when they split the two circuits. They weren't both full, but I did see one of our friends on the list. Jody White's here. I'm anxious to see Jody. Yeah,
I know. He if there's a minnow bite, you really don't want to go up against.
If there's an anything bite, you don't want to be.
Yeah, that's true. He is. I will say this with 100% certainty, as far as media guys with angling talent, Jody White is A1.
You're right there, Matt.
No,
you're right there.
Jody White's won a class. Jody White has won an Open. He's won multiple ABAs. He is. He probably wins 50% of the tournaments that he enters.
He doesn't host Bass Talk Live, and that's why you're respected, because you've been out there. So when you talk about being in a tournament, or you talk about catching a fish under pressure, it's not like some guy in a podcast never been in a tournament. You have legitimacy when you speak, because you've lived it. I appreciate that. People respect that about you.
Also, one of the main, if not only, reasons that the Invitationals and Toyotas have decent coverage too. So.
Thank you, and I'd like to do this at the other two Opens you're not at, so that we are.
Yeah, you're in, Charlie. You're the correspondent for Division I.
Live reporter from the Division I Bassmaster Opens. Charlie Hartley on location.
I will see you out in the middle of the lake at Sam Rayburn scoping around.
Tell Frank hi. I'm glad he's in Oklahoma in this warm spell.
All right, we'll do. All right, see you, Charlie.
Thanks, Matt. Have a great day.
All right, the one and only Charlie Hartley, who is jacked up and ready to go for Division I. We're going to take a quick commercial break, reconfigure some things, and with the magic of technology, when we come back, the one and only Frank Scalish will join us. It is BTL on a Wednesday, January 22nd. We'll be back right after this.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the Beatdown double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the Beatdown.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
All right, welcome back. With the magic of technology, we have Frank Scalish in studio. What's up, Frank?
What is up, dude?
Dude, we were so screwed this week.
I was driving down here, and getting out of Cleveland was a little problem.
I got to straighten this. This is driving me nuts. We're just a slight bit cockeyed.
Where are we? You fix that, Matt. It's like live scope. Am I directly in your beam now?
You know what? We're just gonna roll with it like that.
Yeah, you sure?
Oh no, that was really cockeyed. There we go.
Perfect.
That was driving me nuts. I always worry about getting that thing level.
It looks okay to me. Of course, I can't see anything.
Yeah,
I see zero.
So no, I never even considered the fact that we might be frozen in Oklahoma.
Well, okay, so I leave Cleveland, I start driving down here, and getting out of town was a tiny bit tricky, but once I got a little bit south, at least the snow was gone. It was still cold. Snow was gone. So every single body of water that I'm passing by is frozen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'll start to see some open water the closer I get to Oklahoma. There's absolutely zero open water. And I was laughing so hard. I'm like, oh my God. So I pulled up the weather report and I'm looking at the lows, and I'm like, we're making ice every night. I mean, we literally are making ice every night.
Explain for 90% of the listeners what that means.
Okay, so once the water temperature gets to a certain point, usually it's around 38, 39 degrees, it has the potential to freeze. Now, it doesn't freeze solid all at once. And wind will play a part in it, shallow water, deep water, size of the lake, etc. All plays a part in how fast the body of water will glaze over. So what happens is once the lake glazes over, then you're making ice on top of ice. So when you get below freezing, you continually make ice all night long. If there's open water, it takes longer to form the ice because of the wind movement and everything else. So basically, we did a little recon yesterday.
Yeah, we drove to 2 lakes that are within a half hour of my house, both of which I was on within the past 5 days, and caught fish on. Like, I mean, I wanted to have, like, I mean, I've got a list on here of the 6 places. So you're here for a week of the 6 or 7 lakes that I wanted to make sure we hit based on bass, based on crappie, based on the wind direction, what's been going on.
Right, because we had a plan. We had a big plan. And so we went to check the lakes out, and they're like glazed over from end to end. And we broke some of the ice. A lot of it was a half an inch or better. And it's just been making ice since I've been here.
So what is our game plan? So one of the things that we talked about, which I found interesting, you know, maybe Rick Pierce or Matt Ludy for Bass Cat is listening. I'll cross that bridge when we get there. So what is the game?
We'll cross that.
What is the game plan when it comes to, quote, opening a lake, which I was unfamiliar with as well?
Okay, so where I live, a lot of times,
talk just a hair closer.
Okay, where I live, a lot of times, what we want to do is we want to extend our season. So if there's a particular lake that I want to go to and it's starting to glaze over, I'll go out there the day or two before I want to fish, and I'll start breaking as much ice around as I can. Because what can happen then is the wind will push the ice away. You'll get your open water, and the open water takes longer to freeze than water that's already got skim ice on it.
Right.
Skim ice will start freezing, and then it just keeps freezing. So by opening it up, you're prolonging that process. So at any rate, I was talking to Matt about it at the boat ramp yesterday, and he's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, what I mean is we launch the boat, and then we start opening this sucker up anywhere we want to try to fish. We break ice to get there, and then start breaking it all up, and then hopefully the wind will move it. And then because in the days later in the afternoon, it's going to get above freezing.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially it will start to gradually open up where we break it." So that was the game plan. Then
you also just casually mentioned that you have an aluminum trailer. I have a fiberglass trailer.
Yeah. So I had in my aluminum boat. Okay. I had 2 boats. I had an aluminum and a glass bass boat. I got the Legend and I had an aluminum. So what I did with the aluminum boat was I used that to fish around mostly in the winter. Just because I didn't care if salt got on it, because it wasn't going to hurt it any. I didn't care about the salt. I didn't care about busting up everything. Well, I was going through, 4 tail lights every season. So
you were just going to the ramp and just backing it in and seeing how hard you had to hit it to break the ice.
Yeah, it was like an icebreaker.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what I wound up doing was I connected my trailer lights with wing nuts. And then I put plugs on them so I could unplug them.
We're not doing that.
No, and take the wing nut off and pull the lights.
0% chance we do that, Frank.
No, we're not doing that. So with the bass boat, I bring a spud bar, a push pole, a cinder block with a rope tied on it, and then I gradually will break the ice around the ramp until my trailer can submerge, so I don't bust my bass boat trailer.
We might try that, and if we do, I will document the process.
Yeah, you're gonna be just freaking out.
Rich can catch the hell out of fish too. He knows it.
Yeah, you'll be freaking out, man.
Hella bass. I'm just going back to the segment with Charlie, just letting him know.
I gotcha.
I respect Rich's angling ability.
Absolutely.
A lot.
Absolutely.
He's good on that the jig head worm technique that's up there. I've never really understood that.
It's like a shaky head, only on it.
Except it's like open hook, and then you try to.
It's like a net. It's like worming. It's like using a worm or a 5-inch dinger on a net.
Yeah,
basically.
So this is the other issue that we're running into. So lots of lakes around here we can fish. We had about like I said, an 8 to 10 lake hit list, similar to like when Matt Steffen was here, except the water was too warm when he was here. Ironically,
the irony is maddening. The irony is maddening.
I mentioned this to you. I was like, I don't know like which ones to go check because it hasn't frozen since 2021, the winter of 2021. We had a really cold snap. You could literally walk out on it then. There were guys, I think, that ice fished in some portions of Grand Lake then. But for the last 1,000 days, there's been 0 days that you couldn't launch a boat. I mean, if you wanted to launch it at Nader or something, you could, but you're literally here the only 2 days that you physically cannot launch a boat on these lakes out of the last 1,000.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Which is wild. But I also said, well, you know, some of them based on their elevation, where they are, the wind, the water, like all that changes. But because it never freezes here, I don't know. Like, it's not like we can say, okay, this is the lake that freezes last and then go check it. And then, you know, all the others are frozen.
Right.
So I have no idea what's frozen and what's not in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And see, and so where I live, we know which lakes freeze first, which ones freeze last. So it makes it, you could pretty much pre-plan. But here, I mean, the only thing you could have possibly done here is
kept the lake open.
Yeah.
I should have put the boat in on the key lake that we were wanting to crappie fish on.
And never let the ice form.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, yeah, because
you should have been like, hey, Matt, this isn't looking good. You need to mosey out to the pond and do some checkerboard donuts in it. So,
right, to keep it open. But I didn't really expect it because your water temperatures were so warm a week ago.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really expect it. And it happened fast. I mean, I knew I was screwed when I got up the other morning and it was 0. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, that was so cold that when I walked outside that morning, I was like, oh, it's really nice out. Like it didn't, you know what I mean? Like when it's so cold that it feels balmy.
Yeah, it's crispy.
But by the time you get to the vehicle, by the time you get the trash can down to the end of the road, you're like, screw this.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. So it was funny, but I think we'll be okay. I mean, the trend is warming.
Here, I'll pull up the.
I think I checked this morning. So here's what I thought. I think we're going to have 8 hours above freezing this afternoon to this evening. Then we go into the 20s again.
So it's above freezing at 10:30 today.
Right. So I think we have 8 or 9 hours today above freezing.
And it stays above freezing's 32, right?
Yeah.
It stays above freezing. I'm just
freezing
checking.
is when you're really cold.
It stays above freezing until 7.
Yeah.
And then, but it gets down to 25.
Right, which is not good.
But then tomorrow
I think we have 12 hours above freezing.
9 o'clock to 8 o'clock. But then Friday is when things really get shaken.
Yeah, Friday we're going to have, I think we're going to have close to 14 hours above freezing. And then Saturday is going to be even more than that.
We'll be good because look, I'm looking at Sunday 40, Monday 52, Tuesday 56, Wednesday 61 degrees.
Right, but look at the lows.
39, 43, and 33. So that's 3
perfect.
Full days.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So I guess we'll just have to next Wednesday, the 29th. Oh, that's the day you're supposed to leave.
Yeah, I thought I was leaving on the 28th.
You're going to have to stay for the 29th. It's 61 degrees with 4-mile-an-hour winds.
Dude.
What's Wednesday? Oh, no. Tuesday, 56, 4-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Monday, 6-mile-an-hour winds. Oh, yeah. We'll be good. It's going to be delayed.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait it out. But then here, look, dude, I won't be, if I leave Wednesday, I won't be back in time for day 4.
That's fine. We're going to do like 9 shows this week, dude.
Okay. If you say so, I'm right here, man.
Listen,
I'm with you.
If we do 5 or 6 shows this week and people are upset about going back to do the day 4 on the 30th.
All right. We're good.
They'll get over it.
Yeah, we're good.
So
we're good, right, guys? We're
yeah.
good.
Clay brings like a good point. He goes, you guys should go find a heated crappie house.
Well,
I've never fished that. I always feel like it's a really good way to get assaulted.
Oh man. No, I got my son. Okay. So Frankie, we used to ice fish all the time, and Frankie had this little 2-man, whatever it was that he would drag out there, and he'd, put the thing up and put the heater in there. And I always sat outside on a bucket, freezing my rear end off fishing. And one day we went, I forget where we went. Probably it's this little, actually, to be honest with you, it's this little piece of crap lake. That's not even worth going to, but we went anyway. And I remember it got so cold. I'm like, dude, is there room in there for me? And he goes, yeah, we'll fit. Come on in there. And his little thing was so small that we could barely even fish and, be in there. But all I remember is with the heater going and being encapsulated into the little clamshell, that it was warm. And I just remembered that. So I had to do a show, and for the life of me, I don't remember. I know where it was. It was up north in like Minnesota. And I was doing the show up there. And of course up there, they have all the, the ice tents and everything else. And so we were getting ready to close the show up, and I ran to one of the ice tent places, and I'm like, hey, I'll buy that from you right now. It was like a 5-manner. And they go, okay. And so I bought it for like practically nothing. And I remember folding it up. The guy helped me fold it up, and I put it in my truck. And the first thing I did was I called Frank. I'm like, dude, I got a 5-manner. We're in business. And so we got a couple more heaters, and then we went out and we fished in that thing. And here's the problem with that. Here's the problem I have. Okay. I ice fish like I bass fish. I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly looking. I'm literally never in one place for very long unless the bite's happening. So we get out there, and we don't set the tent up yet. We make sure we find fish first, then we set it up.
Right.
But once you set it up and you get in there and you got the heater going, you're literally fishing like this right now. Like what I'm wearing right now is like what I would be fishing in. You don't want to move. You're good. So if you're not catching them, you're like, well, they'll show up anytime now.
And then you crack a beer while they wait.
You're right, because you are not moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was this one dude at home. We call him JMO. And so John's like, hey, I'm on the crappie. You want to come? And I go, yeah. Me and Frankie will meet you there. So we meet him at the lake, and he's already got his stuff set up. And we get there. He's got a hibachi grill going. He's cooking food out there. Dude, we sat out there and ice fished. We ate like pigs, and we caught the crap out of the crappies, but it was great, man. It was like really laid back.
Okay, so fishing question. I was out there 5-6. I'm so bummed about this. So bummed. I was out there 5-6 days ago, and there were some bass that were moving. Caught a couple nice fish. It was 39 to 41 degree water, depending on where you were on the lake. I feel confident we could have gone out and had a crack in a full day at a couple fish over 6. That's a lake that's got a solid 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice on it right now.
Yeah.
Let's say it opens up then.
Mm-hmm.
Remind you, it hasn't frozen since winter of 21. Right?
Yeah.
So you're 1,000 days without it. These fish have not seen it. We've had mild winters before. Will it be possible to catch a fish as soon as a bass, as soon as this thing opens, or are these things going to just be popsicles, nose to the cover, glued on the bottom?
No, because what happens when the lake actually freezes over, that's the most stable time the lake will have all winter.
Okay.
And so when the ice melts, that lake, the conditions under the ice are completely stable. Those bass have already acclimated to the cold front, to the cold weather. It will be feeding as normal.
So
like
it could be
banner.
Good.
Yeah, it could be a banner day. Yeah.
Huh. It is interesting that it's not very often where they have a high level tournament that is this extreme. Like what's going on in the Open at Clarks Hill, what's going on in the Toyota at Sam Rayburn right now.
Right.
I mean, these are extreme conditions.
Right. So now you look at those areas, okay, which I'm glad you brought that up. You look at those areas, they're going through an extreme weather event. It's happening like right now. Okay. Theoretically, the bass under the water aren't affected like you are above the water with the conditions, because under the water it's stable. It's a gradual warming trend, although I believe Charlie said they lost 11 degrees in water temperature.
Yeah. And same thing's happening at Rayburn too. There's a Toyota there, 24 for the low, 21 for the low, 28 for the low for all the tournaments.
That's a drastic decrease in water temperature.
So what about those bass that aren't used to that? There are bass that have gone an entire life cycle without seeing that drastic, that long. They haven't seen upper 30s water ever in South Georgia, in East Texas.
Okay.
Like, what do those fish do?
Okay, so they're going to be more affected by the front and the barometric pressure than the actual cold. Because here, think about this. The fish that are 20 feet deep, they don't know that the surface temperature drops so many degrees.
So that water temp stratifies even in that winter. So it's not 39 all the way down, or it was 39 down and just not at the top.
Right. The deeper water's going to be it's going to be warmer than the surface water at this point. Okay, we're talking a few degrees, but it's still not. They won't feel the effects of the cold. They're going to feel the effects of the barometric pressure changes because of the cold front.
Okay, so once it stabilizes and it's out, you're just going to have fish that are popsicles, but are still going to be.
Yeah. The thing that'll hurt it is dirty water. If it gets an influx of dirty water, it's going to be problematic.
And does it also? I mean. So down south across all these lakes, sometimes you have a mix. You've got a little bit of hybrids. There are some places, especially on that kind of border zone line, where some years you can fish and you can't, that have some northern strains mixed in. You have some that are pure Floridas down there. Does that also impact that as well too then?
Yeah, because
outside of Florida, I'm talking like Florida strains in Texas, Florida strains in Tennessee, the things like that.
Yeah, Florida strains are so susceptible to cold fronts. I've never seen anything like it in my life. When I started fishing, I didn't even know a cold front bothered them. Like, I'm like, I'm going to smash them. And but when I got my hands on the first Florida bass, the cold front knocks the fire out of them. Where a northern strain, yes and no. I mean, they're pretty hardy. It's a pretty hardy bass.
The next question then, when it was super cold, is this doesn't make sense to me. A lot of times you downsize, you go small for a lot of different species too, bass included, when it's cold. Now, to me, if you present a meal that requires the same energy to eat a 3-inch bait as it does a 7-inch bait, I would think that fish would always eat the 7-inch bait, because then it would have to move less and it would get a lot more energy for a lot less effort. However, it seems like they want a smaller bait. Is that because it takes more energy to digest a bigger bait, or why do they like really tiny stuff in massive cold fronts, and when the water is really, really cold, as opposed to bigger stuff, even if the energy output to obtain it is the same?
Yeah, so I just think it might just be the finicky nature of the bass, or the size of the bait fish that they're keying in on. Because a lot of times in the cold, like, I'll throw a perfect 10 rogue in the middle of winter on them, and that's a gigantic jerk bait, and they smoke it. So here, I'll tell you a great story. So I have a good friend of mine. His name is Ray, and Ray's a great fisherman. He's phenomenal. So we were on the same lake at the same time, unknowing to each other, because we use different launch ramps.
Was he on your stuff?
I don't know, because we use different launch ramps.
I know, but you didn't get out on the lake and you're like, who the hell is that on my stuff?
No, because when I saw him, we were in transition.
Okay, you're moving.
Yeah, we were moving. We weren't fishing.
How do you know he wasn't driving to your stuff?
I don't know that. And I don't own stuff. So
I don't know about that.
So in here I might own it. So here's the deal. So he had contacted me after, and he asked me if I caught him, and I said, yeah, I smashed him. And he goes, what were you throwing? I said, I was throwing jerk baits. He goes, man, I was throwing jerk baits too. And I couldn't catch him on the jerk bait. And so I know what jerk baits he was throwing. Okay. And I said, I wasn't throwing those. He goes, what were you throwing? I said, the perfect 10. And he goes, get out of here. And I go, no, swear to God, I was throwing the perfect 10. So he's like, what color were you throwing? And I said, lace minnow. They don't make it anymore. You know what I mean? And here, ordinarily, we're throwing little 2.5 to 3.25 inch jerk baits, depending on the clarity and what lake we're on. And I fished that bait and I couldn't draw a fish from it. And so I went to the big jerk bait. Now I didn't have live scope then. But I could see some suspending bass on my locator suspending at about 11, 12 feet. And so I backed off with the trolling motor and started casting to the areas where I saw the suspending bass and just started smacking on them. So there's times when they'll take the small bait, prefer the small bait. I found the shallower you're fishing for them in the winter, the smaller bait works way better.
Say that again.
The shallower you're fishing for them
in the winter.
Like a lot of times I'll be fishing, 4 to 6 feet deep. The smaller jerk baits work better. But once I get to the depth range of, 8 feet or deeper, I like the bigger bodied profiles better. I think it calls them from a bigger distance. It's an easier meal because here, look, when you talk about a Pro Rogue or a Perfect 10, they're not small jerk baits. Even some of the high dollar jerk baits that are, 4.5, 5 inch jerk baits, they're really slender. They're not as beefy of a profile. And so what happens then is I think that just that big lethargic, slow, subtle flash, it looks like an easy meal. And I think it appeals to the bass better. I noticed like crappie fishing. When I first crappie fished with you, we were using some fairly large baits for crappie, really.
Yeah, jumbo big baits, like the equivalent of a 12-inch swim bait for bass.
Right, 100%. And so when I went home, I tried that technique and I caught fish on it. But a lot of times I would have the crappie come up, look at it, and peel away, come up, peel away. And so then I went to the baby shad, which is a much smaller profile, and I would get takes from the fish that would bail from the big one. But I also found there are times when they wanted that big bait, and if I put the big bait down there, I caught them. If I put the little bait down there, they would peel away. So I think it's more the mood of the bass at the time. I don't think it's necessarily like, oh my God, it's cold, we got to throw something small on them. I don't think that's the case. I just think it's like anything. It's the mood of the fish at the time.
MJ brings up a great point. They're just talking about how they catch fishing cold now without scope. And he goes, I remember pre-FFS offshore tournaments. It wasn't exactly thrilling action either. Let's be honest.
No.
I mean, dude, it's like, oh yeah, you think, oh, let's watch this guy snail drag a mop jig at 30 feet deep. Let's watch Casey Ashley barely turn the handle on an underspin. Like, I mean, it is not.
It's not. It's not. The crazy thing is like, I used to catch bass and crankbaits in the winter, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And when forward-facing sonar came out, I started gravitating towards, the flash mobs and the jigs and minnows because it just lent itself better. I could see the bass. I could count the bait down. I knew I was within that range. But there was a show I did fishing. I did two winter crankbait shows. One I was using a Fat Freeze 7, and the other one I was using a Norman DD22. And I got on this pattern where the fish were on these inside swings of the deepest grass points that came out, and we absolutely slaughtered them. And I didn't use scope. I didn't have the scope on at the time, and absolutely slaughtered them. I started using crankbaits with live scope, and there's a whole nother world that opened up. And I'm going to get into that in detail later on because there's something very cool that a lot of guys are missing. And I
like it. Well, we do need to talk about, so while we're talking about the cold, so last night while we were putting together our 15-foot crappie sticks, we had the 2006 Bassmaster show, the one that Preston Clark had, what, 1:15:15 or something from Santee Cooper in 2006. Well, the week before that, remember what set up that was it was cold at Santee Cooper. Then they flooded up to the banks. But the week prior to that, if you remember, Jerry McInnes and JM would go out and they would catch bass and they would put a transmitter on them.
Tag them and let them go.
And they would tag them and let them go.
Yeah.
And then during the Bassmaster show, I think they caught him in one of the events. Like a guy caught the fish with the tag, waded in, and then that fish, when it was released, stayed under the dock during takeoff and everything.
That's cool.
But so I digress. So Santee Cooper, South Carolina, they catch this fish. I think it was out of Marion. Is that the Upper Lake?
Yes.
And they tag it, and then they track where it went. Water temp was 50s.
Yeah, that fish, my memory, didn't that fish move like
it moved a ton to the spawning
miles.
areas. But this was the funny part, was when McInnes, Jerry was there, and he's talking. Now, inexplicably, on the lake with all these cypress and stuff, this fish in cold water early in the spring
I know
swam out to the middle of the lake and stayed out there for a couple days.
Yeah.
And we cannot figure out what the hell it was doing out there.
Right.
Like it was just out in the middle of the lake. Like it was the weirdest thing ever. Like, why would this fish be out in the middle of the lake? And we were sitting there watching it laughing, going, it's because that's where they all are.
Right. Because we didn't have live scope then and we didn't know, man.
Yeah. But at the time it was 2006. They're like, well, why would there be a fish that's not nosed up to a cypress stump?
Right. And in fact, one of his comments were, we all know that bass will swim around the bank using the trees and the bank cover to get around. And so he said that, and Matt and both Matt and I looked at each other, and then he goes, and then this bass just went right out in the middle of the lake, and we both.
He's like, inexplicably hung out there, like we don't know why. Like it was so bizarre. Like why would this fish be out offshore in the middle of the lake in 50-degree water?
I know, we were laughing so hard, but of course, live scope's teaching us a lot about bass behavior that we assumed before. Now we have facts on it, because we see it unfold in front of your very eyes. So it's really kind of cool. Plus, there's a faction of fish that never were really fished for before live scope. Not I can't say they were never fished for. They were never fished for effectively as often.
Yeah.
Because I used to target the nomads back in the day on 2D sonar and vertically fish them with spoons and stuff. And it was miserable because they'd be there one day and gone the next, and you could almost never find them again, especially the smallmouth on Lake Erie. I would find these schools, underneath all the emerald chiners and the herring, and they're all 4.5 pounders, 5 pounders. And it'd be like manna from heaven. And the next day you couldn't find them. It was crazy. But now we can, with live scope, we can.
Academic mailboxes is usually, he's always on, very educated. I would say this is probably one of the most eclectic listeners we have. Like you always say, he has a wide knowledge base, right?
Okay.
I'm not sure who it is. Said they tried to plant Atlantic salmon in New Zealand rivers, but they just swam out to sea and never came back. It was an epic failure. They stocked the ocean.
That's outstanding. Outstanding.
Let me ask one more question, and then we'll wrap things up for today. Just a little precursor to what we have going the rest of the week. One of the things that I noticed when we were out in the water was cold. It was 39, 40 degrees. And I've seen this before. You see it a lot with crappie, but with the bass, we saw 4 or 5 big ones. So let's say this is pole timber, right?
Gotcha.
And, you're scoping, you're seeing the fish. A lot of the big fish were
plastered,
not moving. Literally, you could see their nose was touching the pole timber.
Yeah.
Why, when it gets cold, why when there's barometric pressure changes, does anybody know why there is a lot of the fish that like to literally be touching, sucked up next to vertical structure or something like that? Is that, to me, that's a little weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they do that. I do know they do that. That's why before live scope, you'd get a jig and you would be fishing methodically slow, and you would have to cover every square inch of every piece of cover because you didn't know which part of that cover they were buried into. Sometimes we would get a pattern going, like this one time. There was a lot of willows in this one lake, and there was still ice. When the lake level dropped, there was still ice on the willow branches themselves, and I was actually catching bass, skipping the jig underneath the ice, where the willow trees would join the big root and then mushroom out. The ice was on top in the skinny branches. There was vacant spot. It was like a dock, and then I would skip underneath the ice and catch them. And I was amazed because they were literally underneath the willows with the ice on them. And I wound up taking third in that tournament. And I was completely biffed because before that in practice, it was, shad wraps on the points, and we were catching them doing that. During the tournament, I went to a point, and a friend of mine was on the point fishing it. So I went around the point and I went into where the channel swung up against the willows. I was literally just waiting for him to leave so I could go fish it. And I skipped the jig up underneath that ice, and I caught one, and the bell went off in my head. And then the rest of the day, I just plowed them.
The coldest tournament I ever fished in, we fished like a first week of January tournament on Thunderbird with Jared Miller, who's, you don't want to mess with him on Thunderbird. You know what? I grew up in Norman, one of those guys.
Right.
Knows everything. If there's a brush pile, he doesn't like where it's at. He knows how to use a grappling hook
and move it.
May have multiple brush, but just a fishy dude. And he said, let's fish this deal. So we get there, and there's 6 boats in it. It's like one of these days, 10 degrees out, January, muddy water, super nasty. We put the boat in, and I think I've made maybe 3 casts, and he's got 2 8s and a 6 in the boat.
Oh my gosh.
Like, we roll up to the spot. He's cranking with a discontinued crankbait. It was
They're always
badass. It was like 41 degree. I mean, it was one of those, like, I was like, ooh, let's get the heat packs going so I can feel my fingers.
Yeah.
Only 6 boats here. Don't want frostbite. Like, I was kind of being a baby, and he's like, there's one 8-pounder. There's one.
Beautiful.
So
it's a beautiful thing.
Long story short, we end up weighing in 29.78. I lose like a gigantic one that would have given us a 30-pound bag. It was so cold that everybody had left and gone home already. And the only person was there was the tournament director
and you guys,
who was waiting for us to come in because he had caught a 4-pounder. Was in line for first in big bass.
Yeah.
So we weigh in a 30-pound sack,
and nobody
out
was
of
there.
Thunderbird, literally in front of 2 people. The rest of it's empty. It's 30 degrees, and we won like $78 total.
Outstanding. So divided by 30.
It was so cold. I just remember it was so cold.
It was 0.3 cents per pound.
All the other boats said screw it, 0 to well.
Oh man alive. That's outstanding.
All right. We got a little bit of business to attend to today. We actually have Jarrett from Juice's Jigs. And so how are you on name pronunciations? We'll go through this. I thought that was a funny bit.
So first of all, if I could remember a name,
right, that
would help a lot.
You just do the Terry Scroggins deal.
Hey, bud.
No, call everyone Hammer.
Yeah. Hey, Hammer. No, I'm not good at name pronunciation.
So Juice is coming over. You can remember that. And then the guy who owns Lucky Lure, Michael Strands, is coming over.
Michael Strands.
It fits him. That's his name.
That's his
you
name.
know what I mean?
Yeah. That's his name.
Juice has informed us last night on the phone that, it's Strons.
Strons.
With a long A.
Okay.
which I'm going to have a difficult time saying Michael Strauns.
Well, you've been calling him Strands for how long now?
Since I've known him.
Okay.
A decade.
Okay. So that's his real name then.
He's never corrected me.
Well, sure. It's, that's like a lot of, like, my last name is pronounced Scalish.
Yeah.
Like scale-ish. Okay.
Scale-ish. Yeah.
Right. Okay. A lot of people will say Scalish.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'm like, whatever.
Scalish?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't the A be hard if you have another consonant and then another vowel? So if you have vowel, consonant, vowel, the first vowel is hard because of the second vowel that's after the consonant.
Correct. But I am just telling you.
Which would make it Scalish, not Scalish.
Right. But I'm just telling
you. That's why it's Pangrac and not Pangrac, because the N and the G is a consonant, not a vowel.
Correct.
Which doesn't make the A hard.
I did not know this was going to be an English class.
My mom was an English teacher for 35 years.
Outstanding.
You know what I would do? She would give me complex sentences, and my job would be to diagram it. So I would have like a sentence, like a big sentence typed out on a piece of paper, and I would have to be like, here's the...
Perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, man. Intellectual knowledge right before the audience. That's fabulous.
Scalish, anyway.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names. Just
let's not say I wasn't doing it for fun. I'm not like Jimmy Easterling, who I had on guide day, who on a like a quiet evening will curl up and do some calculus. He's a math teacher for 12 years.
See,
that's his favorite type of math, everything.
On a quiet day, I'm usually sketching out crankbait colors or tying flies.
Let's kind of set up for what we have the rest of the week. Actually, let's take our final break of the show, then we'll come back. We have some really cool stuff, some really cool opportunities for the rest of the week. I've been really bad about getting a lot of the commercials in here, so we'll get that, and then we'll come back. We'll wrap up the rest of the week, talk about the opportunities that you'll have to meet Frank in person, and maybe I might be able to tell you he's got a secret bag of tackle that he brought with him. We might be able to talk him to showing some cool new stuff that isn't out. It's BTL on a Wednesday with Frank Scalish. We'll be back right after this.
In 2023, we became a household name in the crappie fishing world thanks to Power Breaks, the game changer. Hey, bass fishing world, buckle up, because you're next. It's going to be fun. Welcome to the next evolution of our product line, Power Breaks Sidekick. Designed to install right on your shallow water acres. We are the first and only fishing brake company to offer a breakaway system. Just like with the Game Changer, the Power Brake Sidekick has it as well. And it's not a matter of if you're going to need it, it's when. Power Brakes, the most durable fishing brakes available on the market today. Made right here in the USA with our rock-solid 2-year warranty. Hey, not all fishing brakes are built equally, and you owe it to yourself to find out why ours are different. Power Brake Sidekick. Order yours today at mypowerbrakes.com. You'll be glad you did.
Pro Bass Adventures is reinventing Mexico bass fishing. With boats equipped with 12-inch Garmin units and LiveScope Plus, free loaner fishing rods, and no-cost airport transportation, Pro Bass Adventures is proudly putting you in the best position for success. Pro Bass Adventures has lodges on Lake Baccarat and Lake El Salto, Mexico's 2 best trophy largemouth bass lakes. Visit probassadventures.com or email probassadventures@gmail.com. The official Mexico fishing lodge of Bass Talk Live. All right, welcome back. Frank Scalish in the house, in the studio. Yeah, he was looking at some of my stuff. I showed that on the show. We talked about it on the show, and then my dad, who's a diehard BTL listener, which is good because if you can't get your folks to listen to what you do, that might be the first sign of some trouble.
Yeah,
with the quality.
I don't think my mom still knows exactly.
Yeah, my mom's always like, you did such a good job on that show. And I was like, well, I appreciate it. I'm also the only child, and you're my mom, so I would hope that you
you have to say that.
Yeah, but which jitterbug is that? So my dad's into antiques and stuff like that. So he messaged me, sent me a message, and was like, hey, weren't you guys talking about that bait on day 4 a couple weeks ago? And I said, yeah. And then he gave it to me.
Yeah, so that's the wooden musky jitterbug, which is fantastic. That is so cool.
There's no baits that put hooks on the side anymore. They're like currently made, are there?
You know,
I was trying to think about that. I couldn't think of any.
Not 100% sure. Nothing that we're throwing for bass up here.
Yeah.
I know some of the musky baits still do. Some of the peacock bass baits definitely do. Most of them are the wooden baits. It's a pretty like I would rather have one on the belly instead of two on the side.
Mm-hmm.
I get the thought process there, but I don't know. I mean, to me, I think your hookup percentages are better with one on the belly, one on the back, than two on the sides. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's psychological for me. Maybe.
While we're talking about this is pretty cool. So
here's the sucky part about being in studio. I can't see the screen, what you're pulling up.
Oh, well, I was just doing this for the listeners. So there's another thing up here, Frank. Remember at the classic?
Yeah,
I
have my apple.
You have your apple?
I have my apple.
So what? So no, this is really cool. So this is a like a 20-inch custom poured. I want to say an Upton's custom. Plastic worm. Feel that.
Okay, so it very much looks like a Producto, but it's not a Producto.
No, I want to say, hold on. This is a 2-part deal here.
Golly. You know what's wild?
Is that the biggest hand poured worm? Yeah, it's an Upton's custom straight tail worm. I think Hog Farmer sells them stuff now too, but that is a kind of a one of a kind.
So look at how soft this is. As big as it is, you think it would be a little more rigid, but it's not.
So that is over 10 years old, and hold it up. Look how straight it is. It's unbelievable the quality that's in that plastic worm. So I was going through some tackle the other day, and I found that in like a Ziploc container. That worm, that exact worm right there. And it reminded me of the first On Location article that I'd ever written. And it was with Grant Goldbeck. It was called Freaks of the Deep. And it was in early 2008, maybe. And we went to Falcon Lake, and Goldbeck was like, dude, I'm catching them on this thing. And I'm like, no freaking way. And we went out on Falcon, and we caught him on that. And it just reminded me, and I looked it up online, and there's still, now I don't know what website this is. I'm not going to click accept because I don't know.
No, don't do
what
that.
It is, but there it is right there. And you can see that he's holding. I took that picture. That was in the Bass West.
I'm looking at the reflection in the glass behind you. So
at the Bass West USA magazine, that's this worm right here from that long ago. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I threw that in the studio. Big giant worm.
Well, you know what's crazy? That worm didn't shrink at all.
No, I mean, dude, it's brand new. I mean, that's got to be a $20-$30 worm right now just for that.
Dude, it didn't shrink at all. It's still got its movement to it. It's not bent.
Yeah. So here's like a full-size vixen, which have I thrown that one?
Yeah.
This is a full-size vixen. In comparison, the diameter of the bait is about the same. So you can tell, like, I mean,
it's like a sausage.
It is like a sausage. All right.
That might see the grill tonight.
Yeah.
We have wild extravaganzas planned
with Juice and Michael Strauns.
I'm just gonna go.
He's gonna open up the door and just punch me right in the nose.
He's gonna walk in. He's gonna wham.
Well, Juice is gonna punch me in the nose too. So he obviously caught that 10-12 at Mexico.
Yeah, he's still posting about it.
My God, there's been a post about it every day since then. And so Pro Bass Adventures, they're gonna promote it, right?
That's so good.
He is gonna punch me in the nose.
He's gonna poison your food tonight.
Well, he can't because I've got all the food. So this is hilarious. So if you go to Pro Bass Adventures on the Instagram page, there's Juice. He's like, oh my God, it's so big. And there he is, like holding it up and stuff. And they're like, 10-12 El Salto Giant caught by Juice's Jigs. Well, Juice gets off. Like the guides drive you around these places, right? Like they take you. It's a point cast and catch. Like they know
you're going there with the purpose of doing nothing but catching fish.
Right.
Yeah. You just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Juice then in the comments gets on this elaborate explanation of how he stumbled upon this 10-12.
Hey, all I want to do right now is I want a disclaimer, Juice. I have nothing to do with these statements. They may not be my exact representation.
So I've fished with his guide for a day. This guy would roll up, you drop the trolling motor and go and point on where you cast, right? So where he caught this 10-12, it's a freaking point with some stumps on it.
Perfect.
And like one place to cast on it. So the Juice then describes this fish as, that was the first cast on a spot. I saw them on scope sitting up on the drop of the ledge and made the right cast. It's Mexico's bass fishing to a whole nother level. Found a wolf pack of the big girls, an hour and 8 to 9 pounders. It doesn't get any better than this. I just wanted to knock him down a peg. So I said, I can't believe at Juice's Jigs reeled that in on a Zebco 33 without breaking off his helicopter lure.
You are a cruel dude.
And then he responded, glad I got that fish off the spot 30 minutes after you left it. Thanks for leaving the big ones there for us to clean up. To which I was like, okay, this is like a sponsor. We're not going to get into the back and forth here.
So, it sounds like the Marine Corps arguing with the Army.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's so funny. That kid. You're going to get punched twice now.
I am. I'm going to get punched by Straughns and Juice.
Right. Unless I run interference for you, which
Michael texted me, said German descent, Straughns is how it sounds. Straughns. So there's a T. Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Straughns sounds more Italian, right?
I know.
It sounds German still?
Yeah.
I like Straughns.
Yeah, it's strong.
Yeah, he put a T in it. Strontz.
Okay. That's how we're pronouncing it from this day forth. From this day forth, it shall be Michael Straughns.
Straughns.
Okay, say it 10 times. You'll never
I know,
forget
even
it.
The listeners are saying, take it easy on my boy Juice.
Yeah, it was kind of harsh. It was kind of harsh on the boy, but dude, that's all right.
Listen, the guy is selling hair jigs for $20 to $30 a pop as fast as he can make them. He's literally the hottest jig tire in the country right now.
Oh yeah. He's doing a great job.
I literally, and I won't say who, have the biggest names in bass fishing in my DMs saying, can you get me some Juice's jigs?
That's
like
awesome.
You would blow your mind on who I've gotten DMs because they know that I know.
Right.
Juice.
Because you guys are buddies and they all know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Long story. We've been good buddies.
No, he's doing a good job tying.
I give him shit, but
yeah.
I mean,
you're a lot I
kind of respect him.
When you're tight with a dude, you can give him shit. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, he's doing good. So
there's nothing safe.
If you want to meet Frank Scalish in person, he will be at Lucky Lure Tackle on Saturday, January 25th.
Is that Saturday or Sunday?
That's Saturday.
Okay, Saturday the 25th.
See how handy that is? That's why when I'm looking up there.
Oh, heck yeah.
Everyone's like, why don't you look at the camera? Well, I've got the camera here, so I'm looking at us here. I'm looking at this here. I've got my audio here. I'm doing the instant feedback here. And then I've got my calendar and everything here.
Which is
perfect. I'm trying to.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean, you do a lot behind the scenes that people don't know about, which is crazy because I couldn't do it. I can talk in a microphone.
Oh, you do a very good job.
But if I had to push all the buttons and do all the stuff, no bueno.
Yeah. 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. It will be at Lucky Lure. Come have coffee with Frank. I've heard that they have the FX colors in stock that will be there if you want to pick up a couple. Have Frank sign them. You will also be giving a small talk. It's actually a youth and high school and college fishing event, so there'll be hopefully youth and high school and college fishing people there.
Yeah.
But you're also giving a talk on customs, traditions on the water, etiquette.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this.
On,
I don't think you want to miss this if you're within an hour of the metro.
Etiquette. I don't know. I mean, should I have in there the the time to lose your cool, or should I just?
I don't know. You did request a whiteboard, so that means there's going to be diagrams.
Well, there's something I need to illustrate because I have to prove a point. And I'm just going to tease it with that. There's something that annoys me beyond belief when I'm fishing somewhere and somebody either A, pulls up in front of me, which clearly is a problem for me, or B,
someone shows up to the lake.
Yeah, somebody else launches a boat there. No, B, someone pulls behind me because I'm going to I'm going to give everything away. Is that bad? Like what I'm going to talk about?
No. Just give us just to tease it.
Okay. So because I'm fishing in a direction, okay, doesn't mean I'm not going to turn back around and fish the opposite way. Depending on the structural element, there's one for drunk wood to take a shot. Depending on the structural element, the weed growth, et cetera, I may have a 30-yard area that I'm going back and forth on. And so if a guy pulls behind you, he pins you out of your ability to turn around and go back through it. And if a guy pulls in front of you, he prohibits you from moving forward. So you're kind of stuck. And unless it's a super, super sweet spot, like a lot of times on offshore structure, you'll have a super sweet spot where if you don't make that cast, you're not catching a fish. It's not like that when you're going down a weed bed or at times, a channel ledge or something where you got to go back and forth because the bass are moving. They're not necessarily locked into one spot, but they're in an area because of the bottom composition or whatever. So I want to illustrate that just to open people's eyes that just because you slide behind somebody
doesn't mean you aren't screwing them.
Right. Doesn't mean you're not screwing them over. Right.
And then hopefully we'll find some open water to fish in the following days. I think we will. I think
we're gonna have it. We're going to have it.
There's a couple places we can get on right now. We're also, I'll tease this. We're also building a day 4, maybe a little scissor reel, a little promo.
Intro?
Can we test it now? Can I just get you go right into the mic and just say, and I want a little bit of deep. Get the Italian out into it, a little intimidating, but also like welcoming in at the same time. This is day 4, and then a little pause with Frank Scalish. Or that's what I want you to say. You're right. We'll just practice it now.
Oh my gosh. This is day 4 with Frank Scalish.
We're going to work on it. A little bit more bravado.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. Yeah. This is a work in progress.
The weirdest thing for me is when I do voiceovers in here by myself, because
well, you don't hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't hear it.
When you're sitting there. This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live.
Right, but you have to be really animated or it gets real flat and stale.
But then you also don't want to sound like Jeffrey's, like you just caught a kid stealing something out of your garage. What are you doing? like a happy median. So what I end up doing is we'll record and then I'll have you say it 50 times.
Well, you got to
piece it all together.
Yeah, you got to play it back.
And then you've got an archive of just badass hook sets that Joe is, right?
Yeah. He put together, I did a small Instagram reel. It's just nothing but setting the hook on stuff.
So just think a bunch of hook sets, graphic, day 4 logo flies in,
water.
And then boom, you're loaded to the cork on one, and then
this is day 4. That's what is it, like Will Ferrell and Talladega Nights?
This is day 4.
Like Talladega Nights. That's so funny, man.
You see what I'm working on in my head?
I know exactly where you're going. We'll take care of it, but we're not taking care of it.
This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live.
And this is the 200th episode of day 4.
Because right now it's just I started, and I'm tired of you laughing at me during the intro.
Because it started out as a nervous laughter, and then it just, for some reason, is so funny to me. It's just so funny. It's like, how do you say that every single time and keep a straight face?
The official Mexico Fishing Lodge of Bass Talk Live.
Stay with us today because we're going to do some ice breaking.
But you have that voice. Like, you know what I mean? We'll get it out of you.
We'll figure it out. Gee, holy smokes.
All right.
Is it too early to have a beer?
All right. We're going to wrap things up here. We got a special trip to make and may or may not have located some secret baits that I may or may not want to talk about. So, because we can't go fishing. We've established that, Frank.
Yes, not today, but we will be on the water very soon.
All right, this is action kicks off on both the Toyota Series on Rayburn and the Bassmaster Open on Clarks Hill. We're also 6 days away from the start of the professional tournament fishing season with the Bass Pro Tour opening on Lake Conroe. Frank is in town for the next 5 or 6 days, regularly scheduled day 4 with Frank Scalish in studio tomorrow on Thursday, the 23rd at 8:30 a.m. That is also when we will be revealing the winner of the Choose a Day 4 show topic.
Yeah, we had the prorogues.
Which you speak about beers. We'll crack a couple of cold ones. We'll go through the list of 100+ show ideas that we had for it. And then stay tuned to both Frank Scalish's at Frank Scalish and mine at Matt Pangrak Instagrams. We'll post different stuff of what we're up to.
Scalish _fishing.
Scalish _fishing. My bad.
That's not a bad thing.
And as well as when show times are. Hey, listen, if you're not subscribed to Bass Talk Live, this would be a great time to do it, and then you can click the notification bell. Then that way you never miss when we go live.
That's
also
true.
If you're listening on iTunes, leave a review. Those really help. I actually take those reviews that are on iTunes, except for the ones that are like, boy, the show's really gone downhill since Mark left. Leave those out of the reports.
Oh yeah, and don't forget, use the capital BTL 25 code, because that's how we're going to pick the winners of the $50 gift certificates.
You gotta wait till day 4 for that. This is day 3.
Shoot, my bad.
That's fine.
I'm just so used to,
I know.
one day.
I know. we pumped the Pradco stuff on day 4. Hey, hey, if you want to pump it days 1, 2, 3, we could talk.
Yeah, I know. My bad. My bad. Hey, ignore that till tomorrow.
All right, this has been another edition of Bass Talk Live. Same place, same time tomorrow for day 4.
We'll talk
to everyone later. See ya.